Why am I not Timoe? At some 40 shoko. Ghana for meeting the unbreakable joy is blessing. Oh, share HRETV. Kosuana she. Now be in shira unbreakable. Keep it locked.
Check the statistics. What from beaucoup d'État on my big six. We remove all the girls, logistics. You want here top speed, Olympics. Yo, what up, people? It's your boy Natalie, and I'm watching HRETV, man. Keep it locked. Badman operator.
Hello guys, it's your girl Pamela Odame Watara, and I just want to recommend HRETV for you guys for all your latest interviews. Just stay tuned at HRETV. I love you guys. Mwah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching me live on HRE TV. HR, His Royal Majesty. Oh my goodness, I love the name of this TV. HRE TV. Oh my goodness. Just catch us live on YouTube. Just go there, HRE TV, and click subscribe, and then get updates on everything that they put there, and then watch them also live on Facebook. When you hear the name HRTV, you are talking about television that comes from the heart. Oh, HRTV. Oh, makuma tomi emwati. Me that one say.
Good morning, children. A B C D E F G H R E TV. Go and watch HRE TV. Bye bye.
How to sign up with biometric security on TapTapSend. Sign in with your Google or Apple account. Choose your preferred email account. Connect your email account to your TapTapSend account using your fingerprint. Thank you. How to sign up.
All right, ebusha for your mamunyina akwaba kesiye eba HRTV so for HRPK, and then you remember the biometric command na afide ye di dwumedi amano aye kama ebiom sa afena wa join ya Mr. Fro you na onya so enfeni ya aha HRTV dwumedi a ya to di time with TapTapSend ye de niema kesiye and then also dwumedi a etufo a otimisua bibi won esa so ebo amanipa dua apomoden ekosoro ene ye de bramo the program no ebeye strictly English biom so na last week no because ya hwe for ne ya do for dodo na no mo person mo hwe then so na ase eni mwa mo wo twikasa nim nti no ye beko brofo na answer na ebe sha ase no ye beko akokofa abafo aso ya sene edi dwumedie ebra mo ene no ye beko form na afede ya da omase teacher ne di kan feel good homes. Feel good says I will pay bia and I say opo bi na ono obedi nkomo when it comes to mental health education, and I say actually bia feel good services say for me chira kwa na afede no ono ndi dwumedie kama so aso biom na o say one boa amawate apomden and I say adwema apomden asebawie no opa bia wo di uti beto na afede bibia kama concerns say be Airbnb or be rented dine so better dine empo sa opesa o see one customized building and I say be as simple as talk crampo or say sure mucha can feel good homes also my number no 513-372-5758 number in the day if you didn't so interested in for the purposes of those who are listening to us and don't have the opportunity to watch us no into me born number no so as na Mr. Carlos say Ghana now pe bia betimi akokoye mo nine pedicure manicure cosmetics and facials eyebrow bakokote wani echi ni eyelashes if you can pedicure waxing any acrylic nails look no further but Happy Glow GH Washerman Estate 20 minutes away from the community hospital right opposite the Veggies and Grills pub no and our number so say from the booking appointment and that's why you ran put more directions there bra +233 594-710-391. So as America will be able to say Oswald Clinic say no more crabata no or maybe mama like say e bi Maryland and Ohio has so eka ho. It is a open metra kwanya And as if you also book your appointment in terms of even having a nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner, and I say you have IV hydration and a primary care, weight management, crampona from our 513-268-2740. If your number here 513-268-2740. Say so Maryland, Virginia area, hold on DMV no. And I say be over Cincinnati from one video or Monterey and booking appointment. Come on. Suit papa. I bet me a down about oopsie abontia why kako and I say why kiko. Aye, kako dear not to see the whatever be ye and wamo and I said obey and quite pa. But young go chikako ewa gabon. May child say ye pursuit a down one obedient in Safa was a yes or the Nsa afa body papa material papa and then material audition so mana kala no etu album. A London bespoke and I make come for amount no contact your more WhatsApp +233-500-915-389 and I said +233-555-927-378. Sasso na make come obiom say apa ye de send skako fie. Say wo Europe, say wo Canada, say wo USA, say wo UK. Papa ye de send skako fie unya any issues. There is no fee applied to it. A free transaction. We is so a fast, a secured, as also reliable. To say a cost straight to mobile money account and I say personal bank account a tap send. Or send it now on the first or download the app no Apple Store and I say Google Play Store now. On first transaction in the promo code nation HRE. Then you have $15 on your first transaction. On pay when I pay the Miss Rao. Saso catch the unia, now you are so catching in say, oh yeah, on fact promo code HRE ship. Almost say HRE amount in your $15. But then I said about you now, you are so in your answer one year, so I also the enemy that was in your coupon cost when shroud. Sabre, you better call the cover director David. Now, or the update from Startup Send, am I in? Daniel, I bring them near Sunday, yeah, no. What's going to happen is Dr. David, by my little update, good news from Startup Send, we are, it's more like an open introduction, right? We are an after they are introducing guest now your panelists don't be jumedie anyway was special guest mama pa kese pa what do you know maybe any looking familiar member connection am what me ho baby efi eba we also so na after your special guest no emo kase bia then we open the floor for questions and answers. But what the special guest want us to do today is so say PK in them come on there a ben open round table entino ye be omudi community questions in the banner yet to tomorrow no more answer as we go into they will let your questions flow test the questions in the bra send you bet me ebusa ni na amamo na yefe na kama Director David over to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much, BK, and thanks for everybody that's joined. Dr. Stephen, thanks for coming. Mrs. Juliet Buteros, I don't know if I said your name correctly. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yes, quickest update with TapTapSend. I think the same as last week, right? We're gearing to close up the year. We're already in October. I can't believe the year is almost done. So some of our plans is to say a big thank you to our entire user base, which means we'll start running promos and doing giveaways every single week from the 1st of October to December 28th. It's a small token of saying thank you. Again, it's a raffle, and not everybody's going to win. Hi, Doc. I see you back. Good seeing you. So, yeah, in summary, that's what we have. Also, we've been, for the past weekend, we've been aggressive with the rates. I know you guys talking. We've heard you guys. So we're aggressively trying to accelerate on how we can widen the margin against competitors, right? While still staying profitable because we don't charge a fee. So we're doing everything in our power to make sure that people are sending money back when getting the best value of the buck. As PK put it, we don't charge a fee, as quick, as fast, as reliable. So yeah, today we're here to support. And Doc, happy to have you. Mr. Joe, happy to have you. I expect more people to join in a bit. But again, please, the floor is all yours. PK, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Medase. Sabria, you see the floor is all mine, you know. And I'm supposed to pass the floor now, we'll be on all his. But before we do that, let me go ahead and introduce our guest for today. Our guest for today, Dr. Stephen Boateng. Actually, this is our third special topic. I think the first one was about actually this is our second. The first one was about sickle cell, which he's a sickle cell champion, and he actually broke it down to us on 2 different occasions for us to really know and understand how to detect and also go get checked for sickle cell. Me saka me sample now, free sample no my order, and me saka me there. If you also say so to me, send a call back to me. Wow. Not necessarily DNA, but our ancestry. I mean, still DNA to let you know, baby, I will feel Ankasa. Now, me, I did Papa Missouri, no, say, be a back over there, see me, Togolese, and I say, be a me, Benini. Now, so now, me, Buseni, be our Benin, Sanya, man, no, I mean, when he says, well, who grandpa, better than self, I got you a chako, I laugh in here, I got your watching me. But, your special guest. On Dr. Boating, any bidin come in there. Actually, before me introduce you, Mr. Momon said, I'm on for Amra, as I introduce you. You go take a quick commercial break. You go take a quick commercial break, but not for dear. My mamma come on as any link on I'm a bush for another phone. Now, if you don't mean about no introduce a special guest, because also I can say you're a guest and a special guest. It's no. You go quick commercial break, but the social guest.
I was at one, your friend Carla boss, the only boss with what is. Do you know about TapTapSend? TapTapSend is one of the easiest, convenient, reliable money transfer app you can get. You can download TapTapSend on Google Play Store or App Store. We download it and then you register. Register and you are good to go to send money across every place, many countries in the world. TapTapSend. Why wouldn't that happen? I was at one, your friend Carla boss, the only boss with what is. Do you know about TapTapSend?
Hello! I was at one, your friend Carla boss, the only boss. Oh, wait, what is New York for more, America for more. Tap in tea, may cheer yourself and then and my bedroom New York City say sometime. Some more money here. Your most reliable, fast, secured money transfer app. TapTapSend about New York City. Ne san say ye near 3 years ye muntino. Ya pesi a boy customers phone now. Ni say wunti TapTapSend the new feature be a beka ho be boa na bon ho ban a protect so. Na so send ni sika ye hu nipa o send nti ano no obeko app na so no upload o passport ana say o driver's license ana say o resident permit card. Who upload here? Yes, Ramo, no say twa selfie ka krebi aka ho. Na so twa a ebe boa ma TapTapSend be hu nipa ko a o send sika efri wo account ni mu e wo TapTapSend app no so. Boa yen ni emboa wo. TapTapSend, it's secure, it's fast, and it's convenient everywhere. Baby.
How to sign up with biometric security on TapTapSend. Sign in with your Google or Apple account. Choose your preferred email account. Connect your email account to your TapTapSend account using your fingerprint. Thank you. How to sign up with biometric security on TapTapSend. Sign in with your Google or Apple account. Choose your preferred email account. Connect your email account to your TapTapSend account using your fingerprint. Thank you.
Yankutuna nasio nyameno no. Yanana sia wa maya tamfuate shoko. Hey, dia wa ne dia no. Wayama na yamenwanwa. Hey, wayama na timwa. Atamfuate shoko. Gara for me dindo.
Ebuja for Sabre mama enough time. I'm going to invite Unia. I'm Unia so I invite Nidia. And now you better call near introduce your special guest. Your special guest for Enjume none the other but Mrs. Juliet Lutrot. Ono ene and also with my friend Mills Lutrot because ne didn't hyphenated it's no hyphenated here. I say maybe didn't know for your sense no one for or for now for having answers so enye me a obo me dey say the crap amenge so. It's your friend Mrs. Juliet Mills Lutrot. Me pacho ne kunu ene cancer Lutrot omunye busuafo. Ono nsa obeka kire. But she is the sister of our very own veteran actor, they say, or rap veteran, Majid Michelle. She will talk to us about, your friend to say, she's a breast cancer survivor. She will share her experience with us. And also, whilst Dr. Boateng is giving us, basically, in there, a nice stage play, MIA. It's over to you guys. Dr. Boateng and Mrs. Mills Lutrot. And I, for the purpose of the program, friend of Jules. She's also the CEO of Pink for Africa. And I say PFA, Pink for Africa. Every year, be October, be no Kotene, both USA and also Ghana. They do a lot of things for it. Actually, let me go ahead and do this, right? Let me read a little bio about her so that you guys can really know who we dealing with, because I think it's important that we address that. Let me read a little bio about her. So Mrs. Juliet Mills Lutrot is a philanthropist, beauty expert. Beauty expert. What do you mean by beauty expert? And a luxury accessories entrepreneur whose greatest passion as a breast cancer survivor is her non-profit organization, Pink for Africa. Juliet's commitment has brought breast cancer awareness and financial support to 700,000 women across Africa, assisting with everything from early detection and education to prosthetics, chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. And also the link for the bio, the link for the company, YMCA, you better zoom in all our social media handles so that people can see and follow as well. One thing and one function in the bio, and they say, one function say she has a son who's also a superstar. It was Europe. I just say one of the very big musicians are making waves in Europe and stuff like that. I'm not talking about underground musician or very very top out there. When she tells a little bit of herself, maybe she'll let us know most of the stuff and people can go follow her platform and also her family as well. Dr. Boateng and Miss Jules, over to you guys. The floor is yours. From Yamodia.
Thank you, Miss Jules. I don't know if you want to say anything about what PK just said, but I'm just excited. Yeah, I'll let you say something.
PK, today we're going to focus on breast cancer, and then maybe at the end of the show we can dive into all the other antics. But for now, because it's October, I am all wired up to really talk about breast cancer.
Okay, let's do that. Tonight's going to be perfect. Great. All right, Dr. Boateng.
Yeah, thank you.
So, do you mind if Miss Jules gives a little background about her real quick? 30 seconds, 1 minute. Then after that, you guys can take over and just steer the ship however you want to take it.
Yeah, over to you, Miss Jules.
Yeah. So my name is Juliet Mills Lutrot, president of Pink for Africa. So oftentimes I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a mother of 3 sons. My oldest son, like PK said, lives in Italy and is a musician in Italy. My second son lives in Spain and plays soccer in Spain. My third one lives in New Jersey. We just left him in New Jersey. He's moving on his own. And we've done our share of parenting. We're done and moving into our own space now. But life is good. The reason why Pink for Africa is because 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And through my journey, I was quickly asked, if I didn't live in Ghana, will I be alive today? And that stayed with me. And it propelled me to want to start Pink for Africa. So again, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. For the longest time, I've been in the beauty industry. So that was one of the things PK talked about. I've been in the beauty industry. I worked as a hairstylist and ran 2 hair salons in Montclair and Saraville. and worked from Fashion Week all the way to television work. I did some teaching through the Caribbean and in the US as well. And that career ended last year, September. After putting in 30 years, I pulled back from the hair industry. I walked away with moving on to another career. I became a handbag designer. And I'll share a little bit of that story and how I became and how that ties into Pink for Africa. Going forward, I believe that, to me, starting from the day I was diagnosed till today, I believe breast cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I say that to say that it really propelled me as a human being and as a woman to reach out to how I can contribute to creating more awareness, education to a continent otherwise will not have as much awareness, and how I can contribute. And through that, I'm very proud of what Pink for Africa has been able to do in the last 13 years.
All right, thank you. That was very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can go ahead now. I mean, look, I've read about your story a lot, and I have to give you a quick side note. I actually used to live in New Jersey, Morristown, before I ran away to Houston. So,
oh wow,
yep, a lot of the towns that you're mentioning brings me back to those times in New Jersey. But I think just like you shared, right?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Where in Houston did you move to? I just moved out of Houston last year.
I live in Cyprus.
Oh wow, that's the New York crowd. Beautiful though, beautiful place.
It is beautiful. I'm loving the weather over here, but sometimes I do miss New Jersey. As Ms. Jules was talking about Montclair, Sayreville, I was like, okay, that's really home for me. I still go back every now and then, but you know, I think what you shared, you know, talking about that question that you got asked, right? If you didn't live in the US, would you have been alive today? I think that's probably the most important question that anybody would have asked you, because it really emboldens and speaks to what we're about to talk about today, right? Breast cancer, it can impact anybody, you know, again, but the biggest thing is always looking at the disparity in care. And it's true, right? For a lot of the women in our lives, so there's our mothers, our wives, our sisters, aunts, unfortunately, the resources that are needed if they were to be diagnosed with breast cancer, it's not even close to what we see here in the US. So whoever asked you that question, when I read your bio, I just want to thank them. Without that person, we wouldn't have seen this impact to happen with 700,000 women and beyond. So it's very touching to see that. And I'm glad that you're able to do Pink for Africa. So that's a teaser for our audience today. So what we are really going to do, just like PK shared, this is an open conversation, right? So I'm going to share my screen. We'll talk about the medical aspect of breast cancer, very high level, very interactive. But I think what's most important is really pulling in the stories, the patient experiences, and why it is important for everybody on this call. The first thing I want to point is most of the time when we talk about breast cancer, we usually point out to women, and I want to remind everybody on this call, whether if you're not with your man on this call, this is for you too. And I'm sure you probably have a woman in your life, but also too, it's also important that there's a lot of things that men can do as well when it comes to breast cancer. And for anybody that didn't know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which makes this even more important. So I'm going to share my screen quickly. And like I said, walk through this really fun, interactive conversation that we're about to have today. And please, 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 if you have any questions as we're going through this discussion, please feel free to share that. And PK will be sure to make sure we go through that. This is just a disclosure. I think what I want to share with everybody, of course, for those of you that didn't hear PK, I do work mainly in the hematology oncology space, mostly sickle cell disease and also breast cancer and gastric cancer. A lot of the information we're going to share here is for educational purposes only. And please, like I said, don't feel intimidated to ask any questions. We're here to learn together. And so my first slide was really going to give Ms. Jules an opportunity to talk a lot about herself. And she's kind of giving us a teaser. But Ms. Jules, I'm going to come back to you again. I just want to ask you, why is Breast Cancer Awareness Month so important to you?
You know, It is very, very important because of the amount of noise that the world makes about it. But women and people are diagnosed every day of breast cancer. So we've reserved October because I am a survivor, and it is important for me as a human being to be part of this advocacy and shed light on it as much as I can. That is why the month is so important to me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so if you didn't hear it, now you heard it. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have a real survivor on here to really talk more about what this means. So what I want to do first is just talk about what is breast cancer, right? So we hear breast cancer a lot. And again, the simple definition of breast cancer, like I like to think about, it's a disease where you have abnormal cell growth in the breast tissue, right? Which can really lead to different tumors. And so for what I want to really focus on for the audience today is I have some images on my screen here, which you all can see, right? Typically, I want everybody to understand that all of us as humans, we have cells that help develop into tissues and then into organs and then you name it. Now, our bodies are designed in such a way that for all our cells, they have their lifespan. So if you think about your skin cells, after a couple of days, those skin cells, they have genes and information in there to tell them, hey, your time is up. So that cell is going to stop growing, it's going to die, so a new one will take over and it will be rejuvenated. That is how all our cells typically work. Now, if you think about cancer in general, the difference there is that those cells are no longer listening to their genes telling them stop growing so new ones can form. And so you just have cells that are overgrowing, they don't stop growing, and you're probably wondering, that's fine, why should I even care about that? The only side effect there is you have a downward signal that's going to happen. If you have cells that are overgrowing, it can impact a whole slew of other things in our body, and that can lead to disease, that can affect our immune system. And so if you think about cancer in general, it's just overgrowing of cells. And if you think about breast cancer, it's that same philosophy happening in the breast tissue, right? And so for women or even some men who have breast cancer, all you're seeing is you have an overgrowth of cell tissues. And as you all can see on this second image down here, the breast tissue is surrounded by different nerves, different nodes, all of these different subcapillaries too, right? And so if you have cells that are overgrowing, that are causing cancer, those cancers can move to different parts of the body, and it's something we call metastases. And so someone might have breast cancer, you might hear them talking about the doctor is treating them for their brain, or for their bone, or for their lung, or for their liver. Or you can hear someone say, well, I have breast cancer and it has moved to my lung, it moved to my liver. All that is that those cells have overgrown so much and they've been moved to different parts of the body. And that's when we know the disease is much more severe. And so for anybody that has breast cancer, the most common places that the breast cancer likes to travel to and causes extra damage, for lack of a better term, is mostly the brain, the bone, the liver, and the lung. I call them the 2 B's and the 2 L's. But it doesn't mean it cannot happen at anywhere else, but these are the most common sites. And so I just want all of us to have an appreciation of what breast cancer is. Basically, cells are overgrowing, and that can lead to a slew of other complications too. So for us learning about general overview of breast cancer, right, knowing this is how cancer forms, breast cancer is overgrown of cells in the breast tissue, which can cause multiple complications and travel to different parts of the body. I want to turn it back to you, Ms. Jules, and ask you, so how did you find out about your breast cancer journey and diagnosis?
So I turned 40 and I had a routine mammogram done. And I got called back to come in and do an ultrasound, which then followed an MRI. Mm-hmm. Now, when I went in to do the MRI, the left breast passed and it was supposed to be on the right breast. But the technician made a mistake and did the MRI on the left breast. And it picked up a very small amount of cancer growing in the left breast. So that then proceeded me to go back to do both breasts. And they found 5 other places that needed to be biopsied. And the results came back in the left breast that small one they had found in the left breast was actually cancerous.
Wow.
And that was when when I was told February 14, 2008, that I had breast cancer. At 40, you feel you're young. Life is just beginning. My kids were very young. My youngest, I believe, at the time was about 8 or 9. And your whole life flashes in front of you. You know, you have 3 children you're raising. And so I seeked a second opinion and went in after the second opinion. The second opinion was a doctor who advised me that she will recommend, because I am so young and my hormones are raging, that I should definitely consider getting a mastectomy rather than a lumpectomy, giving me a higher chance of survival and a lower chance of reoccurrence. So on that advice, I opted for the mastectomy because initially the doctor wanted to do a lumpectomy. So the second opinion changed my mind on how my approach was. And I've been 15 years in remission. And again, I have no complaints. I've changed my lifestyle completely. I eat healthy. I walk every day. I'm very conscious of what goes into my body and the importance of living a healthier lifestyle.
Wow. I couldn't help but
Doc, I got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, if I heard you clearly about, you said the technician made a mistake. So, was it a good mistake or a bad mistake?
It was a great mistake in my favor.
Okay.
It was an absolutely fantastic mistake in my favor because the lump was so tiny. The cancer cell was so tiny that the mammogram did not pick it up and the ultrasound did not pick it up. So for me, it was by sheer luck that this was discovered at the early stage it was discovered. And even though it was still an early stage, it was an aggressive type of cancer and it grows rapidly. And the doctors were concerned that it needed to come out of me immediately. So the decision to do a lumpectomy or a mastectomy was a very important one, and one that the doctors left up to me because they feel it is your right as a woman, as a human being, to make that decision. We can approach it with chemo after. I still did chemo even after the mastectomy because I wanted to be sure that if it was anywhere else in my body, God forbid, the chemo took it all out. I wasn't, at that point, vanity was out the door. Over the years working with Pink for Africa, so many women are caught up with the vanity aspect of the beauty of a woman. The beauty of a woman lies within you, not outside of you. And I knew that from a very young age. So for me, it had nothing to do with the outside. I always make jokes that I have a lot of botox for my husband, so he didn't miss the breast. And I over the years, I know he didn't, because I think as a human being, your presence and you being in your children's lives and being there to see, I'm here, I'm living. I got to see 2 of my grandchildren already. I think that's phenomenal. So, there is no negotiating on that part. And I think women should be very aware of the fact that your life is the most important part, is what you hold in your hand at the end of the day. Your life is what is worth more.
So, Doc, can you break down the 3 sectomies that she said? Vasectomy, lumpectomy. Doc, you know my problem. So break down those 3 sectomies that she did talk about, and let's understand. Yeah. I think I heard one was lump something, one was vasectomy.
The lumpectomy and the mastectomy.
And even the vasectomy,
So the good thing is I have a teaser. We're going to talk about a lot of those things in terms of how breast cancer is diagnosed, right? But to simplify the terms that Ms. Jules just shared, when a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, now the decision is made, right? Whether are we going to take out the breast, all the breast pretty much, so that we can pretty much get rid of the cancer, or are we going to focus on the lump that was found? So that's also lumpectomy. Right now, it's a tough decision. That just like Ms. Ju just says, some women might just want to hey, I want to conserve my breast. And there's also a lot of different procedures.
Oh, so that's what she meant by the vanity part of it, right?
Yes.
Yep. Got you.
And again, some lumpectomies are done where because of where the tumor is, the placement of the tumor, it can be done and it won't affect much of the breast tissue.
Gotcha.
And that is fine. Some patients are very successful with that. But I hear too often a lot of women who they're not doing it because it is okay to do it. It's because they don't want to remove the breast. And then eventually the tumors come back and they find it too late. So I want a better understanding for them to really get a good understanding to what the placement of the cancer and how it affects and the nature of it. And Doc, you can really elaborate more on that.
Yeah, and we're going to spend a little bit more time diving into the diagnosis too. It's probably one of the hardest topic in breast cancer, right? The decision to, some women might just go in straight and do bilateral, which is maybe they found it in one, but they might have a risk of having it again, and they go two, take both of it out. And so I'll spend more time digging into it. But I think for me, sharing that story and the decision you had to make, one thing that really stood out to me was the impact it had, not just on you too, right? Talking about family and having to think about the 3 kids that you have and having to raise them. And so when you think about breast cancer, it's not only impacting the women we care about, it also impacts their families and everybody else too. And that's something that I want all of us to think about. Again, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the diagnosis aspect, but Ms. Juice, I want to come back to you again, and I want to ask you, I think the teaser you gave us earlier was that question you got, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about Pink for Africa and what are some of the work that you all are currently doing specifically to impact women with breast cancer back in Africa?
So initially when we started Pink for Africa, because we were so small, it started with me going home normally and being able to educate. Through education, we realized that, wow, more women were coming up and asking the question of, I was diagnosed and I cannot afford it. So we realized that, okay, we need to now create not just education, but a platform where we can financially support some of these women. So we built a relationship with Korle Bu and Okomfa Notche Hospital. They became the 2 first hospitals that we donated to for the first about 5 or 6 years consistently. And we would go in October and in March and do these donations. And we realized that's not enough. We need to meet this at every month basis because so many women were coming up. And majority of them could afford their treatments up to a point. But we realized there was a lack of education, even in food, dieting. We realized there was a lack of education in the stigmas after you've been diagnosed, how your survival after diagnosis. So we've created a platform where there is already an existing counselor in Korle Bu and Okomfa Notche who counsels these women. But we also work closely with the counselors where they come in contact with the women and bring the women forward to us to be able to assist them. We work along with going and speaking to these women one-on-one and encouraging them. There are women who do not want to get the mastectomy because they are afraid of having heard a friend got a mastectomy and died from surgery complications because their drainage system were not done properly, or the drains they did not drain well, and the area became infected and they died. There's so many stories. We just wanted to remove that. So we focus on one, education, then we move into the stigmas through education, then we go into the areas of financial support. When I say financial support, I mean handpicking women who qualify, who may have started the process but couldn't finish. Chemo is one of those treatments you need to finish the course. So when you start, you cannot stop and say, I'll come back in 6 months when I can afford it and come and continue. So we needed to step in and say, nope, once you've paid to a point, we will now help you through the rest and make sure you complete it. There are others who complete it but cannot afford radiation. And sometimes you need to follow a few weeks after. Once you feel better and your white blood cells have built up again, they need to get you back and get you started on your radiation. We need to step in and help. I don't think we've ever raised enough money to truly serve all the people who need help. Yeah. And it's a shame and a very difficult decision to make on who gets what and who is qualified for what. But at least those who we see that their survival rates are higher, we turn to lean more towards them and help them out quickly, so that we have a better chance of helping them complete the cycle and moving forward. So we focus on financial education, emotional support, helping with diets and food choices and advice on those, and also prosthetics. Prosthetics is one of the things that my Ghanaian women are really soldiers on, because I remember it took me 3 years before I could look at myself in the mirror completely naked. I cannot, and I had implants put in. I had reconstructive surgery done. And here is a woman who has not done anything. Her incisions are quite traumatizing, and yet she's left to look at herself again without even thinking twice and moving on. If I tell you our women are soldiers, I cannot emphasize on that enough. So taking prosthetics to these women and donating, each prosthetic costs $250 in Ghana. Your average Makola woman cannot afford it. So we've donated a little over 600 so far. And in the next year coming up, we're going to donate at least 300 more. This month, we're donating 100. And it's not enough. So these are some of the things your donations go to in truly helping with all the areas that we need to support.
Thank you. That is so powerful. And hopefully you all can see my screen back up again. You know, like you said, right, when we think about even here in the US, women that go through breast cancer, it is expensive. And just imagine, some people have insurance, and even with insurance, it caps out because, like you said, chemo can be quite a while. And for most women, after going through chemotherapy, which I'll talk about in a few minutes too, they have to also go through something called radiation. Radiation is kind of where they, fire these beams into the breast tissue to really make sure you can get everything else that's left out, right? It comes with its own side effects too, but that's also expensive too. So when I think about a woman lives in the US, has all this access, even how expensive it is, how much more for the women in Africa and back home in Ghana and going through this condition and now having to pay for that on their own. So it's really admirable that you all are at least able to give these women one less thing to worry about. So thank you for sharing that. And PK, please chime in. If any questions, keep coming in through the chat as well.
Yeah, keep going. Whenever they come, I'll just go and just, I just want us to get a little in depth into it. So just keep going. Whenever the questions are, well, I'll say this right now, okay? Excuse me. I mean, listen to her speak. I've listened to her so many times, right? And listen to her speak right now, kind of get, the average person emotional when it comes to what women go through. The first thing that I always think about whenever I see women go through all this stuff is still women getting abusive. Getting abused. Not rather women getting abusive, but men getting abusive on women, or maybe another woman being abusive to another woman, right? It's hard to see all this stuff that they go through, and it becomes a major impact when it comes to their livelihood and how all this stuff get taken care of, and yet even what is kind of resonating with me right now is the typical, or the not the typical, the average Bokola woman or KGT woman who is going through this and still goes out there to the market and try to find ends means and come back home to an abusive person who just beat him up, irrespective of whatever she's been through or and going through. So it's nothing but when I can just affirm to the fact that she said, when I say these women are soldiers, I know what it takes to be a soldier. I know what it takes to be right in front, looking at your enemy right in the face, and it's either you or them. And understand that path, and looking at what you're going through, what you're dealing with, and just staring at it every day in the mirror and asking yourself, when is this gonna be over? Or when can there be a better transformation? Or when can I even have the money to even purchase this prosthetics that we're talking about? And if you have people of that caliber, speaking of preaching the gospel to get this out there, I think, say, to me, sometimes, the churches are going to get mad at me, but I don't think there's anything bigger than, doing this. This is more or less like paying it tight. If not, this is more or less paying it tight and helping out, somebody build out their confidence back. And, you sometimes you don't have to wait for it to be right at home, or, for you to be in the family, for you to say, okay, you know what, this is enough, and I have to, get emotional about it. But this right there is everything. So just keep going. And those on Zoom too, if you have any question, please raise your hand, and I'll call you so they can ask your question as we proceed. Just put the emoji hands up, and if you don't know how to do that, go to reaction and click on the raise your hand button, and I'll call you. And if you even turn your camera on and you put your hands up, if you still don't know how to do that, producer will alert me and I'll call you so they can ask your question verbally. But you can still type your questions in.
Thank you. No, that's so powerful. And again, one thing I want to talk a little bit about is thinking about the incidence and mortality, right? And so the reality, Miss Ju shared at 40, she had gone in for a routine, right? And typically that's kind of what the guidelines would say. 40, 44, between that range, again, depending on what guidelines you're looking at, that is when typically the recommendation is for women to go in and get their mammogram or get checked, right? Now, the truth of the matter is that typically, as you all can see on my screen here, breast cancer is most frequently diagnosed in middle-aged and older women, and the median age is about 63. I put an asterisk there on purpose, right? When I read clinical data, it will say 63. When you look at this number, this same diagnosis number for Black women is actually a little bit lower, right? And so a lot of Black women are getting diagnosed earlier than 63. And so it also speaks to the challenges. And as you all can see on my image here, diagnosis is one thing, but also surviving is a different thing, right? And so unfortunately with breast cancer, the later line they find it, the worse the prognosis, right? And so as you can see here, most women are getting diagnosed between that 55 to 64. And that is typically also that same range where the percentage of death is also a little bit higher, right? So it really speaks to the volumes of the impact of this. What I want to leave everybody when you think about incidence and mortality with breast cancer is when you think about breast cancer globally, it's actually the most common form of cancer in women globally. And earlier on today, I was looking at this paper and it really reminded me of something very key. When you think about the most common cause of death in Black women, it is breast cancer. And so again, what we're talking about today is not just something abstract. This hits home for a lot of people. And like I shared, it does impact everybody. Some of us have families and women that we need to really reinforce this to, but also importantly, think about the support that a lot of these women go through. As you can see here in 2023 alone, it is estimated there will be over 300,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer diagnosed, and about 43,000 women are going to die from breast cancer. Earlier on, we talked about men, and I think men have a big role to play, which I know Ms. Juice is going to talk about in a few minutes too. But shockingly or not shockingly too, there are some men that can actually get breast cancer. It is rare, about 1%. So in 2023 alone, it is estimated about 2,800 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen too. So, of course, we men, we have a big role to support the women, but also just pay attention to this and just realize that it's not just women, although we know it is very rare for us men. So I want to come back. I want to come back to Ms. Juice, and I want to really, really dig a little bit into a key topic that you kind of teased us with earlier on, right? Talk about the challenges, and PK, you talk about it, these women are being soldiers, right? So I want to ask Ms. Juice, why do you think there's so much limited information and resources for breast cancer in Africa?
Well, there is a lot of things when it comes to the medical field in the entire continent that is lacking. We have had poor leadership that doesn't believe in so many things. And I try not to be political at all, but when it comes to the life of our people, Ghana on the map is the #1 country in the world for women entrepreneurship. BBC put an article out a few years ago, and it didn't surprise me because I grew up, all the women surrounding me are women bosses. And the examples I saw growing up were women, whether my grandmother wove baskets for the market or my mother did 3 and 4 businesses at a time, from an aunt to a friend's mother. I don't remember seeing a mother growing up who did not have her hands in something. So to hear that really impacted me. And even for women who do not have children, women still have this nurturing side to them in terms of community and taking care of their brothers' children and spreading their wings that way. That a woman's life is just as important. Beyonce's father, to kind of fall back a little bit, was diagnosed of breast cancer a few years ago. And he is a breast cancer survivor. He had a mastectomy on one side of his breast. A few years ago, when I was in Ghana for the month of October, there were 2 men in Okomfanoche and 1 in Kolebu that had been diagnosed. Sadly, the men show up too late because men do not check their breast. So by the time they find out, it is too late. So it's important for a man to learn the process of self-examination and check themselves, even if it's once every 3 months. And if you feel a lump that wasn't there before, you definitely let your doctor know. Going back to the reasons why we have such limited, I think that a lot of it truly, it's so many layers of, starting with the biggest beast, which is the government not supporting our health systems properly, coming on to the herbalist who can do so much, but not to the extent of curing cancer. And then coming down to the churches that our host just talked about, PK talked about. There is a lot of thick stigmas out there. I've heard it all from she slept with somebody's husband, that's why she has breast cancer, to, the devil is upon her. She has the devil's disease. So women are not women are not encouraged to come out and talk about what's going on in their private. You have a society that frowns on anything sexual. So a woman's body is a sexual object. How dare you talk about how dare you talk about touching your breast? How dare you talk about something that intimate and that personal to yourself? All these layers is part of what we need to educate our youth about. Pink for Africa goes out to educate from age 12 and talks about the importance of looking at your body in the mirror and looking at your breast and examining it, knowing your cycle, when your cycle begins and ends, when to properly examine, and knowing the difference between a lumpy breast from your hormones being active because you're closer to your periods, and then waiting after to properly examine. And you should hear the kids, how they all, they all, shy about talking about it. But the goal is to create this awareness and make us aware that it is okay. So many women hide with this disease because early stages of it, there's no pain. It doesn't hurt. We are conditioned to believe that if there is anything wrong with you, it comes with pain. We need to change that. Okay. So there is so many layers of it.
Ms. Jules,
so many layers of it.
I got a hands up for you guys right now. So we're gonna call upon our sister Oba to just ask a question.
Good evening. Hi, sis. How are you? It's been a while.
Hello, my darling Oba. How are you?
I'm blessed. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and the work that you're doing for Africa as a whole, even those on the continent and here in the U.S. as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, the doctor, as well, for your informative information that you're providing us today. I don't have a question, but I just have a bit, I guess it's a question and a statement as well. I do a lot of outreach. Me, myself, this is something I've never shared with anyone, but I've had a scare. So I remember a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, I went for a biopsy, and it was one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had. I know, sis, I've never even shared this with you.
No, you haven't.
I was so terrified, and thinking, wow, really? But something within me was like, okay, early detection is better, so it's okay. And just not having, kind of was scared, the stigmatism that we have within our community. I've had a few people within my community who've endured and who've gone through this process. And because of the stigma that we have towards someone who is ill or someone who's diagnosed, we tend to outcast them. And like
Yeah.
you said, this, we label them. So a lot of people, a lot of women are scared. Even with me, when I went through my experience, I was like, oh my God, I don't want nobody to know. People are going to stay away from me. They're going to think like, they're going to outcast me, da da da. But thank God I went through the biopsy and it was normal. It was fine. I was very pleased. But unfortunately, church member of mine, very young, beautiful young lady, when she was diagnosed, like you said, let's do prayers. Let's do alternative, medicine. Let's do this. Oh, I don't want my breast to be cut off. So even though as a community we were trying, those who knew were trying to kind of send the messages for her to go ahead, let them cut it off if that's the last resort. By the end, when she went going through all the steps, going through the doctors and flying to wherever prayer camp and doing alternative medicine, the disease had spread. It spread all over, and unfortunately, she did not make it. So now I ask myself, what can I do in my community for us to normalize talking about topics like this? Normalize talking about, like you said, men too can get this. I know with Pink for Africa, when you do your annual gathering, men come and support. They come with their wives. The men come solo to come and support. So what can we do? I know you've started the journey already by making it normal. It is okay to talk about these things. It is okay to go and examine your breast. It's okay for us to talk about breast without making it sexual. Because as a community, we tend to kind of be shy away from certain topics. Oh, they're too vulgar. Oh, they're making it too explicit. But these are the things that we need to really start educating at a very young age. And kudos to the work that you're doing in Africa. Kudos to you for spreading the word.
Thank you so much.
I just pray for the day that we will normalize these things in our churches. We will bring doctors and topics like what we're doing right now into the church community, because as we all know, that's where the masses are. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for the journey that you are embarking on. I mean, you have my full support, as you already know. So thank you again.
As always, you've hosted our events, firsthand and intimately what we fight so hard for, and encourage everybody to donate and be part of this amazing cause. But you've hit on so many different things that is so important. How do we get into the churches? For years I fought the pastors, and then I realized, no, there's no need to fight them. I rather need to be friends with them, so that I can find a way to get into the churches to change the narrative there. And that's what we've started doing. So more and more, some of the doors, the walls can come down and we can get into the churches, because it's where majority of the people are gathered. But when you have a leader of a church constantly promoting that cancer is the devil's disease and it is not allowed, and believe me, religion is one of the toughest things to convince somebody otherwise on that particular. It is such a tough place. Yeah. And sometimes by the time they wait too late and show up, the doctors are at the mercy of that late diagnosis and can only do but so much. I tell some of the pastors, listen, the doctor was created by God. Oh, you people, you think the brain came from where? It came from God. He handpicked this man to make him a doctor, and you don't want to go to him.
It's
so sad.
I think it's also, sorry, Doc.
No, go ahead.
A lot of people, there's been a lot of breach in confidentiality. I know.
Trust.
Yes. Trust is a big deal, because I know when people go to like a hospital And where I'm at, there's a lot of Ghanaians. And when people go to the hospital with, whatever the diagnosis may be, the whole community finds out this person has this.
You're right.
You're right. So it puts fear in us. So I'm not sure where we can begin to put strict measures in these places so that our people can also feel confident in knowing, say, I'm going to my primary physician or I'm going to go get a biopsy done and my story will remain in that office. But I'm sorry to say, it always finds its way into the community.
It does. And I think that is also because the more we talk about it and we don't make a thing about it, I chose as a hairstylist at the time to share my story. I shared it with every woman who sat in my chair. I was an open book. I would go to chemo, come back to the shop. There was no question about who, but I lost clients. And I realized majority of the clients I lost were Africans. The few African clients I have stopped coming to me because they said I had made a big deal about my breast cancer. But it was really sharing my journey and empowering women to say, it is okay. Through that process, if I tell you how many women, even before I started Pink for Africa, reached out to me while they were waiting for their results in the radiologist's office, panicking for me to talk them off that ledge because I shared my story. And I think more of us need to talk about, like you were able to come today and share, even though your story was a good one, it was still a story you have where you were, it shook you up enough to want to share it. So to encourage women to say, listen, let's not hide it. Let's come out and talk about it, because that's the only way we can get the monster out of the room.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you both. It's so empowering seeing, two women like you shared really take charge of this. And I think like you both just shared, I think we have a long way to go, but that doesn't mean we can't start. And I think starting is what you both are doing, right? I think it starts with story sharing, and it also starts with breaking out these stigmas and the conversations like this. I know we could probably spend 2 hours or a million times talking about the impact of our churches and religion and all of these things. But I still think that we're headed somewhere. And for me, this is what gives me hope. And I appreciate both of you sharing this because this is a big deal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I know Bob talked about how scary it can be going through a biopsy. And I have probably I should not put that image in my slides, but I'll show it just to give people context on what all these women deal with too. So the next part of what I want to talk about briefly, just talk about the risk factors of breast cancer, right? What puts a woman, or like I said, a woman at risk of breast cancer? And the first thing I want to share is that this is not an expansive list, right? One thing that's very fascinating to me is, we always talk about a risk of a disease. So we'll talk about risk of breast cancer. More than half of women who get diagnosed with breast cancer, they don't have any of these risk factors aside from them being a woman or being older. So these risk factors are real. They can happen, but it's also important to mention that if none of these still apply to it, it still doesn't mean that you shouldn't be proactive about it. And the first thing I want to point out is, there's this different types of breast cancer. The one that's most common is driven by hormones. So it's called hormone receptor positive breast cancer. But the biggest risk factor is probably has to do with age, some alcohol consumption, density of the breast. It doesn't mean it's finite, but that's another risk factor too. And then family history, hormone therapy, late menopause, right? There's a big correlation between how the hormones of a woman's body is working, or when those hormones kick in versus their risk of breast cancer too. And also keeping in mind too that genetic mutations can also play a factor in breast cancer. That's the big part a lot of people don't talk about. Some women's breast cancer are driven by genetic mutation, and sometimes that could be a good thing because we can target that specific breast cancer using targeted therapy. And I think probably the biggest one that everybody knows about is the Angelina Jolie story,
Yes.
where she realized that through genetic testing, she had a high predisposition of having breast cancer and decided to go with double mastectomy, right? And again, she had the funds and resources to do that. And so there's multiple different risk factors: excess body weight, physical inactivity. Ms. Jules, you made a point earlier. changing lifestyle, walking every day, all of these little things, they do add up. And so it's important that, we all are aware of these risk factors. And why are we talking about these risk factors? Because they do impact the survival rate. I'm grateful to hear that Ms. Juice, you said 15 years, right, in remission. That is excellent. But I can also tell you that I know a lot of women that unfortunately didn't get that. And so that's why we talk about all these risk factors. There's some risk factors that a woman can control for, and there are some that she cannot. It's not a woman's fault that she was born in a house of a period where her hormones fluctuates, right? It's not a woman's fault that maybe she was born with high density breast mass. It's not. And so we just have to understand that these risk factors are important because they can impact the survival rate. And I want to remind everybody, the sooner you find out, the better. I think Obayi said it perfectly, right? Early detection, it does save lives. So this is just quick data I want to share with everybody. So when you think about the 5-year survival rate of breast cancer, women that are diagnosed earlier on, like local disease, we call it, survival rate is about 99%. Now, if you think about women that have been diagnosed in metastatic disease, that's when the disease has spread across the body, it's only 30%. And so it is very, very important that we really speak a lot about those preventative measures and making sure women are proactive and doing those breast examinations and mammography and you name it. And so, Ms. Juice, I want to come back to you again, and maybe you can share with us, talk a little bit more about the importance of breast self-examination and mammograms and how that can really impact women, and also some of the things that you all are doing to support some of this stuff for women in Africa too.
So self-examination is particularly extremely important for the woman living in Africa because early detection is key. We all know that cancer is a very expensive disease. And when you are diagnosed at a latter stage, the chances of you surviving is much less, on top of the financial strain it will put on you. So early detection is key. Majority of the hospitals in Ghana, when you are diagnosed early, do a mastectomy and not a lumpectomy because they are worried that a lot of the women, when they leave, they don't see them again. So they take chances on the fact that if the whole breast is removed, even if it's early detection, they don't do chemotherapy, their chances of survival is higher. This needs to be convinced to the average woman in Africa so that they understand that the doctors are actually trying to save their lives and not the other way around. So having said this, early detection is totally key. Teaching a young girl at 12 years old when she starts to get her breast to learn about her body is only allowing her fingers to memorize her breast tissue. And as the changes occur, she learns about and grows and has a relationship with her body in a way that it empowers her as she gets older. So that education then gets passed on to making sure that you as a parent, as a mother in the household, teaches all the women in your house, the young girls in the house, how to self-examine properly. And believe me, early detection is what caught mine. If, Doc, you started this conversation that, women around 40 years old would go for the mammography unless otherwise it's a family history. We are finding more and more women in Africa and across West Africa. I lost a young girl at 28 years old. Ifwa died. Ifwa died, even though her cancer was caught very early. She got pregnant just when she finished her surgery, just before she started her tamoxifen. And that gap, waiting for her to have the baby, an opportunity to breastfeed the baby, by the time they went back to put her back on, to test her, to put her back on tamoxifen, her cancer was back because she was young and her hormones were raging. So if there was any little bit of cancer left in the body that they didn't detect early, by the time we realized it was too late. And she left behind a 3-year-old. She was a single mother. Now her grandparents, who could barely afford to raise her herself, is now responsible for this 3-year-old girl. So I'm saying that to say that early detection has to follow other things. Early detection alone is not enough. You need to listen to your doctor after you've gone through your early detection and been diagnosed, and really respect what the doctors are saying to you. Because Ifwa went and got pregnant and told us too late. By the time she came back, she was 5 months in. And again, the stigmas crippled her. You will not be able to have children, so you might as well have one, even if you're going to die. So we didn't have an opportunity. The doctors didn't have an opportunity to save her life. So believe me, we cannot drum that enough. I tell women, allow your men to even check your breast. Teach your husband how to examine your breast. Because in the moments of your intimate times, there are so many husbands who catch their wives' lump because they went playing with the breast. So create an environment where it is not an uncomfortable situation. Make it fun. Make it an experience. Examine his breast as he examines yours and get pleasure out of it, please. I don't have pleasure out of mine anymore. Please have pleasure out of yours while they last. And it is important to share those moments, please.
I love that. Like, you can't have said any perfect, right? Like you said, I think we typically think of breast cancer, we're thinking of older women, right? But it really spans across. And, just like you shared, early detection is excellent. But how do you start early detection? It's by letting our younger women get comfortable. Like you talk about 12-year-old. What does it mean? The woman you shared who unfortunately passed away. What does it mean when you get pregnant? How do all these hormones shift? How can those further lead to the growth of a cancer that might still be in your body too? So I couldn't agree with you more. And
Doc, to piggyback off you a little bit, I want to also encourage our doctors to be a little bit more transparent and be more educational, especially our doctors in Africa. We don't turn to give enough information to the patients, so the patients don't have a lot to work with. We need to have translators in the room who will help, or the patient, ask the patient to bring somebody with them when they're coming to see them for any of their visits. That way, things can be explained properly to the patient. There are so many patients who are afraid of their doctors, are afraid to ask questions in Africa because the doctors are so quick and so short. And I get it. A lot of our doctors are overwhelmed in Africa. They are working with very little. There are so many patients to see. There's no time. But the goal is to save a life. So if it means explaining a little bit more, I really beg and encourage our doctors to give a little bit more of themselves in the examining rooms. Yeah.
I love that. I've always said this to a lot of my colleagues, right, in the healthcare profession. Sometimes the worst communicators are people in the healthcare field. And I really believe it. And I think we just have to be intentional with how we talk. And it's mostly, you get used to talking like you're talking to your colleague, but most of the time, a lot of our patients, they have their own expertise in different realms, and it's not what we are, the same thing that we speak to. So I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of translating in patient-friendly language for our patients and their families. I want to ask a question here. You kind of alluded to about men, right? But I want to ask you, if you had one advice for men on this call listening today, what do you think is the role of men to improve breast cancer awareness and education, to support women? What would you say one would be?
Well, I've had the opportunity to sit in a sports interview where all of the platform were men, and I've done radio interviews where there's been a ha, and the breast is only meant for one thing and only one thing. I truly say to everybody, I am a mother of sons, and it was so important for me to share my journey with my boys, for them to have a respect for what a woman goes through during these times. There are so many of our men who leave their wives when their wives say that they are going to do a mastectomy, or the option to do a mastectomy. He will say, I've never heard of a woman walking away from her husband because the man is sick, or God forbid, his zabra, as we call it in Arabic, does not work. At the end of the day, you stick by that, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. is what the Bible tells us. And if we are true Christians and we believe in that, then we need to show the support. I am a product of survivor because of my husband. The kind of support he gave me during my journey was absolutely unbelievable. And I couldn't be here without that support. He became an example for my boys to see how important it is for them someday to also be a good support for their significant others. And like you started, we come from women. We have mothers, we have aunties, we have sisters, we have girlfriends, we have wives, we have side chicks. Hello. Let's be clear, we are surrounded by women. And because we are surrounded by women, we need to be a little bit more understanding. Not all men are that way, but I think that majority of the men who are, they operate more of fear and lack of knowledge than they do with anything else. And I truly believe that if the knowledge is there, if the doctors allow both people to come into the examining room, if you go to Korle Bu today, right this minute as I'm talking to you, you're going to see in the men's ward, the wives, the side chicks, the girlfriends, the grandmother, the mother, everybody is there supporting the man. Go to the women's ward and you will see very few men there.
That's true.
There is something to be said about our culture and how we look at women.
That's
so
true.
it is very important that we make that more welcoming and more understanding and more compassionate.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that every man on this call would really, I challenge all of us men on this call that we can be better. Even if you're doing it, there's always room for improvement. I know knowledge is power, but when we take that knowledge to action is what really matters. And I never thought of what you said, but you're right. A lot of time when you go into hospitals or the clinics and people are sick, mostly women surrounding the individual compared to men. So we can do better. So thank you for sharing that. The next thing I want to talk about, just give our audience an overview of how breast cancer is diagnosed, right? Oba talked about it earlier, but this is what you were talking about with the biopsy, right? So again, this is just general. I'm being general overview. There's a lot of more nuances to this, but typically, it's done through a biopsy. There's different types. It could be core needle or fine needle aspiration. Literally insect a needle in there. Wherever they're suspecting that lesion to be, they pull that out. And then now they can do further testing with that biopsy sample to see what's driving that cancer. So once that biopsy is taken out, there's different tests that can be done. There's one called immunohistochemistry. There's FISH. There's all of these different tests that can be done, and it can tell, is this cancer being driven by biomarkers? And biomarkers are like genetic factors that are driving the disease. Now, the good thing is for a lot of breast cancer, if it is driven by a biomarker, now we can pretty much really figure out the treatment and what's going to help take care of it. Not all cancers are going to be able to identify a biomarker. Some of them are not driven by anything. It's just there. And then we typical triple negative breast cancer, we'll talk about it in a minute. But for those women, the prognosis is poor and it's very challenging too. So typically, even our women going through this process can be a lot, and we have to be there to support them while going through this journey as well. And like I said, as far as treatment, I'm not going to bore all of us with it, but a key thing I want all of us to hear is that when you think about breast cancer, we typically hear about hormone receptor positive breast cancer, which is the most common one, right? It's called HR positive. And I think you talked about tamoxifen earlier. So tamoxifen is a woman is hormone receptor positive. That drug can help with those women with that disease. Now, there are some that are HER2 positive or HER2 negative. That's not a biomarker. I'm not going to bore the audience with it. But all of these different biomarkers is how the treatment can be decided. And then the last one I want to talk about is triple negative breast cancer. This is where they look for the hormones. There's no hormone driving it. They look for the biomarker. There's no biomarker driving it. And they're like, what do we do? So you have to give these women chemotherapy, which is going to kill every rapidly developing cancer cell, which is why when you see women with breast cancer or other cancers, they go through chemo, we see a lot of them lose their hair. And I think that's another big aspect of breast cancer as well for women when they have to go through treatment, the side effects that come with it. And again, it's mostly driven by the medications that they have to take. So I want to really talk a little about triple negative breast cancer because I know that that's probably the hardest one to treat. And so I'm going to come back to you, Ms. Jules, and ask you, tell us a little bit. And I know we had a conversation about this earlier, and I really want to dive into this, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the prevalence and impact of triple negative breast cancer in Black or African women?
So a few years ago, we had the pleasure to donate to Sloan Kettering in building a relationship with Pink for Africa with them. Mm-hmm. And we got to sit with a small group of doctors who were doing a research in West Africa. And I was very curious because I wanted to know why West Africa. Due to the influx of genetic testing where people have found their genes and traced where they're from, especially Black Americans and Black people around the world, they have also found out that majority of the Black women who do get the triple negative breast cancer, that the lineage leads right to West Africa. Mm-hmm. And once they looked into across Africa, they realized, wow, there's a lot of diagnosis. Sadly, a lot of younger and younger women are being diagnosed of this disease. It is an aggressive type of cancer. It grows rapidly, and the nature of it is horrible. Sadly, across Africa with our underprivileged medical hospitals, we do not have all of the treatment in place to really survive from this disease. I lost an aunt to triple negative breast cancer at 61. And it really became something that I was very interested in. So this group of doctors were doing research in Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, and I believe Sierra Leone, the 4 countries. They had taken 1,000 women from each country and were putting them through a series of tests to find whether it was genetic driven, whether it was our diet, whether it was what is this disease. And so far, nothing has been truly clear of exactly what it is and why more women. Mm-hmm. We know in America that more Black women are diagnosed in breast cancer. More white women are diagnosed in breast cancer, but more Black women die. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said by that. But the triple negative is definitely one that early detection cannot be pushed enough. Yeah. Because when detected early and a full mastectomy is done, especially in Africa, there is, again, a stronger survival rate than not. Even if you're given 10 more years, God forbid, you still have 10 years you didn't have before. Mm-hmm. So it is important for us to really understand that the triple negative is very common among West African women than it is anywhere else in the world. So it is something that, again, we don't know, but we hope that some discovery can be found and we can really, it requires 3 different types of chemo to be treated. Now, we are in Ghana, for example, we are trying to make it through with 1 and we can't even afford 1. How are we going to do 3 chemos to chase this out? Yeah. So again, early detection becomes something dark. You cannot speak on it enough.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, so, just like you said, perfect, right? Triple negative, a lot younger women, mostly Black women, and it's so severe. We always say prognosis, metastases. A woman can be diagnosed with triple negative today. The next week or 2, you're going to see them lose significant weight, go through chemo, and before you know, unfortunately, they're gone. And so it's very severe. I think that, as more research comes to help us uncover why there's this association, I think all we have to do is just reinforce to people that early detection is important, especially in our community. And you alluded to this earlier, which I have this slide to talk about, right? And so, I want to really ask myself and the audience here, why is breast cancer awareness even more critical for women of Black or African descent? You just spoke about, like we said, triple negative is the most rigorous type of breast cancer. And we've seen it more in Black or women of African descent, most important West African descent. Now, this is data from the CDC and NIH. And as we know, this is looking at here in America. When you look at breast cancer incidence across races, look, white women versus black women. And again, we're not saying one deserves treatment over the other. We're just pointing out what's the gaps and how we can fill those gaps, right? It's almost similar when you see the incidence rate of breast cancer in black women versus white women. What you see, the survival is very low in black women compared to white women. And I think we all probably could speak to why. There's a lot of disparity in care here in America as well. And so I always say, you think about America, we have these issues, quadruple that where we're from. And that's why this is important. And you talked about this so eloquently earlier. I pulled this data just for all of us to get some perspective. Typically, if a woman gets diagnosed early, that is where the cancer hasn't spread. We call it localized or sometimes pre-regional. When you look at the rates that we're talking about, we're not just saying these to say numbers. Across board, whether a woman is diagnosed at an early stage or distant or metastatic stage, mostly for black women, the survival rate is very, very low. And that is when we talk about breast cancer awareness. We even want to reinforce for our women in our community to do a lot of these self-breast examination, talk to their primary care physicians if they feel like something is wrong, or seek the counseling help and support from organizations like Pink for Africa. So this is really happening. And I just think it's important that if you look across board, like I said here, it's not even close. Looking at the different disparity in care and survival for women, especially those of black or African descent. So as we bring our conversation almost to an end, I just want to open the platform for you again, Ms. Jules. And I know you've talked a lot about, PFA and Pink for Africa and everything that you all are doing. But I really want to maybe if you can share with us some of the key events or some of the key programs that you all are doing. I know you guys are doing something right now as we speak for October. But can you tell us more about the specific events that you all are doing to bridge these disparities in care for these women with breast cancer?
All right, so Doug, before she goes into it, I want to state this real quick. So this is from Francisca Salah Baby Amponsa. She said, "Wow, I am learning a lot today." KK Amponsa, did you hear what Mrs. Lutro said? So I think she's sending a caution to her husband to make sure that she's really listening. In terms of, I think that comment came when she was talking about, men needs to check out, the breast, and they can do that, and the woman should enjoy it with pleasure, because, enjoy whilst it lasts. I think that's where she was coming back from there. So, Ms. Jules, over to you. And Daniel Yabama, I'm going to say, hey, women, live simple. I think he meant to say live simple. All right.
So going forward, every month of October, Pink for Africa does its biggest collective donations to different hospitals. This year, we've acquired 2 new hospitals. We've acquired Tamale Hospital and Cape Coast Hospital. So we now have a total of 5 hospitals that we are serving. We started initially with Kolebu, added Okomfa Nochi, and then added Ho Hospital a few years ago, last year, and the year before. And this year we've added 2 more. But again, it is your donations. When you pour into Pink for Africa, 100% of your donation goes to serve the women and people who need help. I cannot emphasize that enough. Personally, I own 6 different brands of products, and each one pours into Pink for Africa. That money coming from the different companies that I run is how I run Pink for Africa behind the scene. So I pay my videographers, my self-educational staff, the different things that run Pink for Africa. But we make sure that your money goes to serve people and not goes to anything else. So understand that. The second thing I want to say is that this month alone, on the 13th of October, is No Bra Day. We are making the whole week No Bra Week. So as a woman, you come home, pop your bra, and, donate. And please enjoy No Bra Day. That is just liberating. We all know how a bra is uncomfortable to wear. So when you come home, enjoy that. We are also encouraging you to use this month to please teach one, reach one, and teach one. So it can be a woman at church, you hold her hand and show her how to properly self-examine. You go onto our website, look at the self-examination card, go on Google self-examination steps for breast cancer, learn it, and teach somebody. So be part of Pink for Africa by being an advocate yourself and teaching other women how to properly take care of themselves and also how to self-examine. The best time to self-examine is 1 week after your period, if you are getting your period. If you're not getting a cycle, then you can examine anytime. For the men, you can examine anytime. Learn the steps. The same steps that we do for women is the same for men. So again, have a field day with your significant other and enjoy each other by learning how to self-examine your breast properly. The fingers have a memory. So remember, the more you do it, the more your fingers will tell you if you feel something that is not there or that was there prior. You'll be able to tell. The other thing for us that is coming up is education. Encourage people to be a support to somebody. We are encouraging you to be that advocate and educate. We are this month we've done a prosthetic donation in Korle Bu already. We have started our education on television and radio and all the schools and different things we're doing, even though I am not in Accra myself this year, because again, I have a rupture in my breast. So I needed to stay put and go through surgery because one of my implants have ruptured and I needed to go through surgery to take better care of myself, to make myself available to Pink for Africa next year. But I will be in Ghana in March and we will continue with the donations. Usually Pink for Africa does every month. We give something, support somebody in some form and direction. This year we partnered up with a local foundation in Ghana called Embrace. Embrace has since then put different navigators in all the hospitals and is allowing us to build a better and a closer relationship with patients and be able to give them a better support. So know that your donations go a long way. So please go to www.pinkforafrica.org and find it in your heart to donate, and you will help touch lives all around.
So I have to read this real quick before we call on our sister about again to come. So Francisca Salah Baby said again, she said, I'm happy about you adding Tamale, my home region. God bless you, and I would definitely reach out. So you got one person so far openly.
Beautiful.
I'm going to be reaching out to, support. I hope she's not supported because you went to Tamale this time around, but she's supported because she wanted to support. So again, please.
It is all good. It is nice to see representation. We are human beings. When we see that we are being represented well, it encourages us to donate. So it's absolutely
Salah will donate whether she actually have a region in there or not. Yeah, she's actually a military woman in the world's greatest air force. So currently stationed at California, and
That's amazing.
I'm proud to say that I recruited her to the Air Force. So she's one of my newest people that I recruited when I was recruiting, and she's doing very well. I'm proud of her. So Salah, make sure you and your friends, and also not just Ghanaians, reach out to all your friends who love to donate and also impact others for them to put a smile on their face. Oba will speak, then we will run the show up. Basically, we'll bring the show to an end after Oba speaks. But I want to say big thanks to our sponsors for making this show a successful one. I pray that we do share this show to our friends and family for them to also get, education concerning this. Oba, over to you.
Thank you once again. I think when Sis was talking, I just want the listeners and viewers to really understand the work that she's doing for Ghana or for women in general. Sis, you failed to mention that you actually take time to go to the remote places in Ghana. Remote places that people are not even, they don't have access to healthcare. She manages with the small donations that you guys give. The money, like she says, 100% of it goes to these remote places. And if you see some of the condition and the videos that she's able to capture once she's in Ghana, you'll be touched and you'll be moved. So I am encouraging everyone who's listening tonight to definitely visit her website, pinkforafrica.org, and donate any small amount you can. People need the help. And if we have someone who is actually dedicating her time, who's relatable, she's experienced this journey. And if you are listening tonight, trust me, don't be ashamed, don't be shy. Reach out to her, donate to this cause, because there's so many fraudulent organizations out there, and I can attest to you that what she's saying, where the money is going to these people. At times, she has to use her own personal money to actually fund some of these people who are in need, especially of medication. They go to the hospitals and they'll call her personally. The doctors will call her and say, this person is in the hospital. She's unable to pay her bills. What should we do? And guess what she does? She wires them the money. And yes, it's kind of the whole. But because of the organization and because of what she has dedicated her life to do, it's a blessing to all of us. So please, I am also seconding, whatever she said and advocating 100% that this, if you want to donate, this is the best organization. And I'm not saying it because she's my sister. I'm saying it because I've seen the work. I've seen what she's doing. I've seen the sacrifices that she's making, so it takes a village. And she really, it takes a village. And she's really, once you start talking to her one-on-one, I hope you'll be able to talk to her, or you have access to her, you'll really understand her story and what she's all about. So please use this opportunity, visit the website and donate. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and state this.
I thank you so much. Thank you so much. I tell people I am very reachable. My numbers are everywhere. You can reach me on so many different platforms. I tell the donors, if you really need to speak with me to make you understand what we're doing, please feel free to reach out through email, through Facebook, through Instagram. Pink for Africa is everywhere. Reach out and I'll respond.
And Ms. Jules, please do me a favor and put the link in the chat room, and we will put it on all the social media handles. So just type it in there and your contact information as well. So let me go ahead and say this before we close this show. Those of you who want to donate, especially Francisca Salah Baby, and the rest that are actually listening solemnly and also majestically, I want to say that if you want to donate, please, especially those of you sending the money back home, is there on the website, is there any mobile money account back in Ghana people can donate to, or it has to be here?
Well, it can be here, but we're going to add that up very soon. We are finalizing that.
So once that gets taken care of.
We had a little issue with it, so we're correcting it.
Once that are getting taken care of, I think it would be great if we get you, one of this promo code. I'll talk to director about it, so that when people send and put the promo code PFA, they can go ahead and just, get, at least when they're new sending money back home, they can actually get $15 and also add to their donation and send the money back home. And also, I want to urge each and everyone that's going to be sending the money out to the Ghana account. If you already got TapTap Send, and please use TapTap Send so that it gets there faster, so that it gets there in a more secure way whenever they add that vendor to it. Oh snap! We have a comment over here. My producer alerted me. So Cecilia Poirier said, "Why did they choose October as Breast Cancer Month?" So I'll leave that for you guys to answer. Then also, director said, "We are interested and would love to support and donate on behalf of TapTap Send." So TapTap Send, if he wants to, honestly speaking, the moment this show came up, and you know how long we've been talking about this, over 2 years I've been trying to drag you on my show.
Yeah.
And when you said, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. But I felt like I was ready this month, and I've been talking about it over a month. And it happens to be that Dr. Boateng, whilst I was talking, like a side conversation with him, was like, what, that is in my alley. I would love to come on board. And somebody called me, was like, hey, it looks like you have these doctors who really have time for you, pa. They don't, I'll say they have time for me, but these guys don't have time. And I'm not trying to put him on blast or anything. Dr. Boateng knows how long it takes for us to even have a conversation over the phone. It probably takes like a week for us to even talk. Whenever he's ready, I'm not ready. Whenever I'm ready, he's not ready. But most importantly, is like on his side, not being ready. So this tells you that for him to even take 2 hours of his time, last month and this month to have a conversation with us alone, on behalf of Tap Send, Time with Tap Send, and also HRTV. We want to say big thank you that you are always available, even though sometimes I get a little nervous, like, hey, but producers like that, on friend dog. I was like, oh, catch me last week, so and it's like I'm testing him, and he's giving me information that he's gonna show up, and you've never failed us. Every day on point and always punctual. So thank you very much for coming, and also thank you for being supportive. Thank you for in fact, this whole program tonight was orchestrated by Dr. Watson. He wanted us to go this route.
He did fantastic.
Yes, he said, I want it to be all about Jews. He said it. We had a 3-way call. It's like, hey, PK, I want it to be all about Jews. I'm just gonna add my little, professional side to it, but I just wanted to be all about her, and I wanted to speak because when people speak out of experience, it kind of resonate with the people better than you try to be all theoretically with everything. This is very pragmatic, and I think we cannot even thank you enough for making this happen. And I remember when I first met Jews, right? So we happens to be family. Now I didn't even know till recently, about 3 or 4 years ago, when we went to a family reunion. I'm like, and it was her brothers, and everybody, And my auntie was like, uncle-in-law, no. They offer senior, So I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that, and it was a blessing. Ever since then, she kept talking to me about this Pink for Africa. PK, you need to come on board, and I'd be running away because of pink. But now we are gonna be proudly wearing pink right now. I mean, real men wear pink, they say, right? So
real men wear pink.
And I like the fact that she dawned on her pink, and I was trying to find me a pink outfit, but I couldn't. So I think I'll buy one, and maybe before the end.
I'm going to send you one. I'm going to send you a T-shirt from Pink for Africa.
Just ubekumi. So before the month ends,
you don't have a choice.
Before the month ends, right? We try to see if we can come back again for a final touch to remind people, let them understand that breast cancer is not just gonna be a passive, but it's here with us, whether we like it or not, and we have to be strong with the dog. Last 2 weeks, and you told me men get breast cancer too. I did not know that. I did not know men also get breast cancer. So when it comes to the medical side of it, I'm ignorant like a class 0 person. So I'm glad that you make this happen. Okay, so the link is in there in the chat, and Dr. David, please, do you have anything else that you want to say to them before we sign them out, and so that we can bring the show to?
Absolutely. First of all, Dr. Watson, thank you again. I hope you're surviving the heat in Houston. I know it's 110 in the summer. Thank you for coming as usual. Jules, look, I was just texting about on the side, in full transparency, incredible work. I mean, it's very incredible work you're doing. And I think it's different from just, we can just add on and go like, great job. But I think there's capital needed. So we do what we can to support. I mean, I can't guarantee that we can give you, we do what we can. But I think, again, we commend you for what you've done, but we'd be more than happy to support. Again, Doc, Jules, thank you so much. I know it's a Monday evening. And again, thank you. That's all we have to say. Thank you. Oba and everybody who attended PK, obviously A-class. And the entire team. Again, thank you for myself, and we'll be sure to follow up. Jules, if you don't hear from me, I'll sync with the people at the back end and see what we can do to support you. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, PK, for bringing us on board. Doc, you've been amazing. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
I'm going to steal some of your slides and use them for other things.
No worries. Anytime. No, thank you. It's your story that matters. So I'm glad we can tell this story. And everyone, please go to that website, put it in the chat. This is how we make a difference back home. And you don't need $1 million.
No, you don't.
Somewhere
little drops of water creates that mighty ocean. So.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for coming. Well, Facebook, YouTube, this is where we end the session of Time with Tap Send, and we about to go into the section with the breast cancer across Africa, and we're about to slide into the Q&A section with Tap Send. whatever question that you have, whatever problems that you have, whatever contributions that you have. It's not always a negative aspect of it, but also we can focus onto the positive part of it too. So please bring it on board. And if it's great as it was last week, we're gonna make it sweet and short and simple. So again, I've always been your host, PK for Essential, and I bring you nothing but the best. I try to, not me per se, but the team. My producers. We just added a new producer to the team, so the team is growing. We have his name is a little paraphrase. Your friend the Blacko, but he may keep it the Blacko, sir. Producer Blacko, but it's not the Blacko that you know. This is another Blacko, but they look alike though. Okay, Blacko look alike. So that is our new producer with us, and he's the one behind the machine, making sure that things are getting done the way they're supposed to. And of course, our producer Nana Lord. Making sure that things are happening, and our producers at large, director Daniel, and also A-Class for making sure that the right thing is being done. And most importantly, you the viewers. Without you, there'll be no show. Thank you guys all for coming, and please stick with us on Zoom as we continue with the program. Thank you. God bless us all.